Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Florida Hockey Bros podcast. And a special welcome to Ranger fans. Um, all right, let's get into the Panthers and Rangers. We watched game one. Game two is happening tonight. We watched game one on Wednesday and had a lot of takeaways. Every time you start a new series, it's always interesting, but I know that looking at, we always look at the opposing fans' reaction after games just to kind of get some feedback on the Panthers and just to maybe get a different perspective besides just drinking some tears. So yeah, man, I know you want to get us started off on the Ranger fans and their view of game one.
Yeah, bro. It's kind of jarring because we haven't played the Rangers in the playoffs in a while, so I guess I've never really cared to look. But in recent years we faced a bunch of different teams, and we've become familiar with like the Bruins and the Leafs and Carolina and Tampa and their fans, right? And the chirping and their shows and their podcasts and what they talk about. And I have to say, for the most part, I always like to say that, and I think we said it in an episode previously, the Bruins fans or the Bruins podcasts are in some ways, even though, they can whine and complain like we all do that. Our fans do that. The Panthers fans, I've seen plenty of them do that. They actually, to my mind, a lot of those shows and podcasts were very respectful of the Panthers. Like I would just say that they were actually breaking down a bit of what the Panthers were doing and actually giving credit to the way they played. I always felt that way, even from the comments. I felt like there was some, and maybe it's just knowledge about the game. I think understanding why you're watching. And it doesn't surprise me because the Bruins play a style that it looks kind of just simple and physical, but it's actually quite layered. And I think what even though they don't have a very deep team at all, I mean, if you look at the roster, they probably shouldn't even be necessarily even a playoff team or at most a wildcard team this year. And yet they were really tough to beat. And I think it just speaks to the fan base and the culture and the front office and like how they run their team, that they understand the game. They understand how to play the style that has success in the playoffs. And I think that kind of trickles down a bit into the way that they talk about the team. The Leafs can do a smart job, breaking down games. But I think my issue with the Leafs pundits and fans and stuff is that often they are mostly passive aggressive. They can still give you like an underhanded compliment to your team where they always find a way to like make fun of the fans or make fun of the names or dismiss a player, until that player like hits them in the face or whatever. So to me, that's been the criticism of the Leafs, is like way too self-centered, which we all are. But when you're talking about a game, you kind of want to open it up a bit more, in my opinion. But then going through the Rangers reactions, and again, I don't know any of these people. Like I went through a bunch of different podcasts and shows and comments and fans, and I have to say, man, like it is the dumbest like I've come across, like by far. When I say that, I mean, like there were people saying, "Oh, it was the most boring game ever." The Panthers just parked the bus. Like, and a bunch of people agreeing with that. And I'm like, I don't think you understand what parking the bus means. Like, yeah, the Panthers play defensively sound game. That's what you do in the playoffs. That's what great teams do. Shit, the Oilers just played, they gave us some chances, but going by the style that they usually played, they played a pretty sound game, and some people today are giving them credit for that. Their penalty kill has killed 19 power plays in a row. Like, that's how you win. I mean, you need to score, but it's also about the ability to defend when it matters, because the other team's also going to score. These are all good teams. So anyway, I felt like the conversation around there was like so dismissive of the Panthers. Like, oh, it was an even game. Oh, they just parked the bus. It was the most boring thing. What was happening? And, the Rangers didn't show up and this and that. And it's like just a fundamental misunderstanding. I think they expected the series to be open and pretty and have a bunch of offense, because I think they got spoiled the last two seasons. They played the Devils, who are very offensive-minded and play very open kind of game. Then they play against a team that wasn't really a playoff team in the Capitals this year. I mean, they got the easiest matchup of any team in round one. And those games like barely mattered, honestly. And then Carolina is a team that plays hard, but they don't hit at all. And they like the back and forth, and they like to open it up, and they love to pass. And I actually think it cost them the series. Because I do think that something in my mouth, bro. You're gonna have to edit that out. You're gonna have to edit that out or leave it in. I don't know what it is. Summer bug or
Disgusting.
something. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. Anyways, this is God telling me that I shouldn't have mouth Rangers fans, but I'm an atheist. So so anyway, as I was saying, like the conversation seems so like out of whack with what's happening, and it's so disrespectful to the Panthers. You can tell most of these people haven't watched the Panthers play. Most of these people don't understand what was coming, which is kind of surprising for people who are supposed to be talking about the game, supposed to be understanding what the matchups are. A lot of people dismissive of Bobrovsky. People thought that he was like, have you not watched Bobrovsky in the playoffs the last 2 seasons?
Oh, during the season, he was
even during the season
better than
I
Schuster.
mean, he's a best enough finalist. Like, anyway, like it's easy to when you're that level of self-centered and quite frankly a little bit basic about what you're watching. If you do not know that your team, it's actually one of the worst teams in the league at 5-5, going by roster talent, quite possibly the worst 5-5 team of all the talented teams in the league all season. So it's not like this is who they are. And I'll get into some numbers later to actually show it and prove it. But if you didn't expect that to be an issue, and I know some people might have, but again, a lot of the narratives seem to really minimize that. My last video that I did on my own, I talked about the 3 areas that everybody seemed to be ignoring because everybody was talking about power play and the goalie matchup and the scoring and the top 6. And I said there's 3 things that we're ignoring: 5-on-5 play, which it's going to be the main decider in the series. Can the Panthers dominate that, or can the Rangers actually get it closer and then take advantage on the power play? The physicality and the aggressiveness, like shots on goal, forecheck, which again favor the Panthers for a lot of that game. And somebody mentioned something curious the other day, yesterday, that in the third period, shot attempts for the Rangers were the lowest of all 3 periods. So even though they got the better chances, the Panthers actually defended really well overall because they had the lowest amount of shot attempts in the third period. The Rangers did, needing to come back. So these are the little things that you kind of don't necessarily notice, but are actually determining the game, a lot of the game. And so those were the 2 things. And then the third part was the mental part of it. And to me, what I saw from a mental perspective was the Rangers looked defeated for the second half of that game on the bench and otherwise. And there was no pushback on the physicality at all. Now, they're going to probably do better in game 2. But I also think that what they're not accounting for, and I'll throw it back to you, my main takeaway from the Panthers, that was not a good game by the Panthers. Like, we were slow to start. We didn't have a lot of speed on offense. We were not sharp. We weren't on top of rebounds. There were some rebounds to be had. We weren't timing things right.
Yeah.
We played really solid defense. We gave away some breakaways, which we tend to do. I think we'll try to clean that up. And our power play looked terrible. I thought we played a solid game. I thought we played a mature, smart game. That's what Marie said. It was a mature game. And we put in a couple of good hits, but we didn't even hit that much. Like it wasn't like we could hit twice as much literally in a game and not be an anomaly. So anyway, bro, I just came away thinking like a lot of these people just don't seem to know what they're watching. And their main reaction was, instead of give credit to the opposition or, whatever, was kind of almost criticize the game and criticize like, oh, the Panthers don't really want to play hockey. And I'm like, well, if that's going to be your thinking, your attitude, and that's your team's attitude, you're going to get swept, bro. Like, I don't think you understand where you're about to, like, what you just entered into.
Yeah, if you look at the big picture, you can say that series for the Rangers against Carolina was a little deceiving, maybe to them or their fan base, because
outplayed in 5 out of the 6.
Carolina,
like, concretely outplayed in 5 out of the 6.
That was going to a game 7, and then Freddie Anderson did his thing. So I think that kind of gets lost out there. Like, I don't think the Rangers should have come out of that series. And they're a very good team. They're very good on offense, but you can see that their main focus is just try to get out the zone and go on the attack. They keep talking about puck support and all these things that I think the Panthers are just well equipped to shut that down, or at least limit those chances that the on the rush or off the rush thing. That's definitely a concern, because Panthers were the worst team in the season. giving up rush chances.
That's because of
So
the style we play.
yeah, yeah,
We 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 block the board, so our forecheck is elite. We block the boards, and we know also how to do the man-to-man in our own zone. So our penalty kill is strong, our rotations are strong for the most part, and we allow Bob to see a lot of pucks. We can clear the net too, but because we have the guys in Paradise the Wall, the middle of the ice, if you get a rebound or if you get
yeah,
block a shot, we're definitely vulnerable. And I think they're willing to live with that, which is what I want to say. Like Bob has been solid on the breakaway, so I think that they're kind of giving that up, I guess.
yeah. And I guess like once the playoffs start and you get through that first series, there's always something you learn from that first series. Maurice even talked about that when we beat the Lightning, or it was like game 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. He talked about sometimes you lose a game and you kind of just carry any lessons from that game over, even if it's to the next series. It doesn't have to be to the next game, but I just think that the way that the Panthers were able to get through Tampa and their power play, and then to have such a tough grinding series against the Bruins really helped them. Now I almost feel like this is it's not an easier opponent because they have more talent than the Bruins. They can score. They should be able to score better than the Bruins, or at least create chances. But I think that our defense and Bob can kind of slide in there and provide support. And that all that gets lost, when you're a fan of a team and all you're doing is kind of focusing on your team, which is, you mentioned the Leafs, and that's a big issue with their fan base, is that they don't look at the other team and what they're doing right and why they're getting shut down. Even Sheldon Keefe talked about other teams, whatever plan for the Leafs to beat themselves. Like, they always make it sound like it's just all on them, which in turn creates more pressure on the players. And sometimes you just get beat. Sometimes you get beat. You get back checked, you get forward checked, and it just happens. And if the Rangers now, they're going to have to adjust if they decide to forward check and kind of switch their style a little bit. That's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that. But yeah, and the goaltending is fine. It's going to be even in this series.
It's going to be a wash because it's not just about the people. I mean, people like overdo the goaltending thing. Like in the playoffs, what you mainly need is don't give up the soft ones, because those are killer, And most of these goalies at this level are able to avoid those for the most part because they're so locked in. Like, these guys are more locked in and more prepared than the rest of the season. The season is a grind for a goalie, And so, to me, that's part of it. And it's also how the team is playing in front of them. Can they see the puck? Bob is elite at moving side to side. So if he can see it, he can block it and he can stop it. He has a lot of attributes. He has some weaknesses. If you go on top and you're having that day you got your snipers going, you can get some of the goals over his shoulder because he plays the butterfly. But and on some breakaways he can overdo it and give up a goal. But at the end of the day, the same you can say about Igor Shesterkin. He's a great goalie, but he gives up rebounds, and he's a small guy. He's short, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's always going to be a weakness, and these guys are not. I mean, Swayman, to me, I have to say, of all the goalies that I've seen in the last two playoffs that we faced, Aiden Hill, for a while, because it's so huge,
He's big, yeah.
It just looked like, how can you even score against this guy? Even though we did score a bit, but I have to say, Swayman to me looks like the guy who's the most positionally sound goalie I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's not a big guy, but he's always ready for the shot.
No, and he's not small. I mean, Swayman is a big dude. It's just not as big as Vasilevsky or whatever. But anyway, like, I saw Swayman. Swayman doesn't make it look pretty. He's never like flashy, but the dude is like always there. Like, it's just incredibly hard to beat. Shesterkin to me feels beatable. I also think he likes to play the puck a bit too much, and that could be an issue.
I told you at the beginning of the game. I said, I don't know if it was a game plan or he just likes to.
He's just going back to every puck.
Every time there was a dump in because of the forecheck with the Panthers, he would kind of try to take the puck. And I told you before, that goal happened in the third period. I told you, that could be an issue for them if he misplays that, and he did.
But anyway, like, it's a wash at the end of the day, and it's more about what your defense can do in front of your goalie. what your defense can do at 5-on-5. How responsible can you be and patient? Can you play the kind of game where you're dumping in, dumping out? If the walls are being taken, can you be smart with your passing? The Rangers seem a little bit desperate, like they kept passing back and forth, kind of horizontally, waiting for the space, and that space isn't going to open up. You're just giving the Panthers time to set up for defense. And yeah, the Rangers can try to do more of a forechecking style, but it's not their nature. Their guys are not used to hitting over and over. They don't like doing it, to be honest. They look like they don't want to do it. They might do it once or twice, but again, what people don't understand in the playoffs is that you have to do this over and over and over, whether you're up or down. I expect the Panthers to take the hit. I expect them to come out knowing that Rangers are going to play hard, and I expect the Panthers to be more physical than even in game one in terms of the amount of hits. I expect them to try to, simplify their game and wait for their opportunities, because the Rangers are going to really press for a while. But yeah, it's not your nature, man. And you could see it. You could see like just how comfortable, like with the Bruins, they are more than comfortable. They're looking for it. They're coming after you. So I think that's the difference. It's like the Panthers are there to play a playoff style, and we have scores. And again, in the first game, you didn't get to see as much of it. It's going to show up. I mean, it showed up against Tampa, and even in flashes against the Bruins. Barkov had a couple of incredible games. Our power play is always going to have one or two games where he gets hot. We do have the talent. Bennett's coming online. His skating looked excellent last game, finally, because, coming out of the injury, I think he was a bit slow. I think his shooting's still off, but he's a guy that can really create space. I love him on that third line. I'm glad that Maurice is going that route, because he makes that third line kind of really greedy now, with Rodriguez and Speedy, because Rodriguez and Bennett can skate, and Lustranic is not fast, but he's a smart board player. So yeah, and I think Cousins and Lumber are the perfect fit for this series. And Lumber had an excellent game. So I think that it's going to be hard for the Rangers. I think they're going to have to improve their 5-on-5 play. They're going to have to capitalize on the power play and hope the Panthers take penalties, which we have been able to control after the first 3 or 4 games against Tampa. And we're not going to retaliate. The Bruins punched us literally in the face, like Kachuk. They took off his helmet. They punched Lundell in the face. Like Lustranen got punched by Shesterkin. There's not going to be a reaction. We're willing to let you take the penalty because the team has been through it. And then, this conversation about Rempe, we're going to talk about Rempe. Everybody's saying Rempe is the difference. And I'm like, maybe for a shift or two, to get your crowd into it. But the truth is, he's a fourth liner. He's a rookie, and he's a liability out there for penalties and, not being able to defend.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what people don't understand is that if Rempe really tries to hunt, we're not going to try to fight him. We don't have anybody who's going to want to fight him. What we're going to do is we're going to go after your guys. So if you want Panarin and Trocheck and Zibanejad and Fox to get hurt, then have Rempe come after Forsling or come after Edblog or whatever, because then, when that happens, we're going to do the same to you. And we're going to smash you. And, we'll put Lumber out there on the next one, and he's going to go after your smallest guy and going to fuck him up. And so that is kind of what you need to understand about that idea of playing Rempe. We have Pat Maroon hunting with the Bruins last series. Nobody ever even looked at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Bennett still laid out Marchand,
Yeah, so. They're not falling for that this year. I think that's the main difference to this team, other than the familiarity with each other and the chemistry from last year. Also the struggle to win in the finals and to know that you were that close. You can see that they're trying to stay healthy over being overly physical. To your point about the hits earlier, the hits were 28-27, I think. Panthers, which is very low for the Panthers,
incredibly low.
And yeah, we can get into the 5-on-5 play. But yeah, man, I think like you said, the goaltending matchup, it's whatever, and then the difference maker is 5-on-5. Even if the Rangers get some power play goals, I don't think they can just win a series just scoring 90% of their goals on the power play. That's not going to happen. But we can get into the 5-on-5 numbers. I know you have some ready. I know the game was pretty even 5-on-5 in terms of goals for expected and goals against expected. It was pretty even, but yeah. What you got for us?
Well, I just wanted to quickly say now, before I get into that, is that looking back at the series against the Devils last year, because that's another thing, that this idea of the scoring and the Rangers scores and how great scores they are. I mean, the Rangers are solid, really solid on the power play. Even if you look at their stats for the season outside of Panarin, their guys are not getting like 100 points. All right, let's get it. Let's be real. I know Crowder scores a lot of goals in front of the net and all that, but it's not like you guys are like, we faced this before. We faced Kucherov and Point, who are like point getters and puck handlers and really hard to contain. And Stamkos, who scored a bunch of goals in that series against us, and we still beat him in 5. So that isn't necessarily going to make all the difference, even if one of your guys gets hot. But I also wanted to say, against the Devils last year, man, the Rangers won the first 2 games 5-1. That series looked done after the first 2 games. But when you look at what happened the rest of the series, Devils won 2-1 in overtime, 3-1, 4-0. Then they lost 5-2 again, and then 4-0. There were 4 games in that series that the Rangers lost where they scored only a goal or less. And this is the same team. Yeah, and you have Tarasenko back then. Now you have Roslovic or whatever, Wemberg. You have Mikkola back then. Now you have, one other guy, whatever. Like, it's essentially the same core, the same guys. And so you are capable of going several games against a team like the Devils, who's not like, come on, elite defensively, or plays a forecheck, and you struggle to score. Now remember that series. So all to say, like, you better score, because if you don't have all the ways to win, honestly. And in terms of 5-on-5, yeah, just looking at the playoff stats, man, like playoff stats straight up, 5-on-5. Just look at stats. I'm not even going to do advanced stats because I know some people criticize that. Just shots and goal so far in the playoffs: 282 for Panthers, 210 for Rangers. That's a big 72 shots different. Shots against, okay, 217 for the Panthers, 273 for the Rangers, and the Rangers have played 1 fewer game, so they allow a lot of shots. And even penalties. The Panthers 72 penalty minutes. The Rangers 86. So they take more penalties. Again, 1 fewer game played than us. Those are like just very solid, concrete stats to show you that at 5-on-5, you're going to get our shot. And definitely, if I look at the hits, definitely the Panthers will definitely, the disparity will be there. In terms of the shots allowed, shots taken, hits, those kinds of things at 5-on-5, the Rangers are just not concretely, just not good at. And I think of all the teams in the playoffs, in terms of the all situations, in terms of the main stat that's used, which is the goal, expected goals percentage, Panthers are number 1 in the playoffs so far. That includes 5-on-5 and power play. And the Rangers are 8th. And, there are 4 teams remaining. So, and their percentage is under 50% for most of the Corsi, Fenwick, all the advanced metrics. It's under 50% in all situations for the Rangers. So, that is the story, right? Like you want to make it about something else, and some of those factors might maybe Shesterkin steals a game, maybe your power play wins you a game. You still need to win 4, and more often than not, you're going to be out there at 5-on-5. Yeah. So and the Panthers power play could also click, because our power play was not that bad. The regular season, Panthers and Rangers were top 2, I think, in the power play on expected goals or whatever. So, not in terms of the actual percentage of goals scored, but in the advanced metrics and chances. We create a lot of chances on the power play. So, anyway.
No, and overall, we created chances. Both teams had the same amount of high danger chances. In the game, I do think that the game was fairly even, other than some of the, offensive time from the Panthers was.
But that's the thing. What even means, if you want to go by like the hits and the
all the stats,
high danger chances, right? In terms of puck possession, in terms of 5-on-5 play, in terms of defense, quality of hits, in terms of eye test, the Panthers control the entire game.
Yeah. Even it was 1-0 the whole time, and I always expect that the other team.
And again, not a great. I've seen Panthers play better games in the playoffs so far than that one.
Yeah, this wasn't a great game. We were a little slow, because that's the other thing we mentioned. We talked about the Rangers being really slow, and I think it's just by comparison, because you don't think the Bruins a fast team, but they are. They're really good on the rush, and
they can move the puck, man.
And they're fast. They defend well, everything. But I think that's just one of those other differences. Again, it's just a matchup thing. It's not even about um, that the Panthers are just that much better. It's just a matchup thing, and I don't think the Rangers just match up well against the Panthers. And now with this game going into game two, not only is the pressure, on them, but like you said, if the Panthers just kind of play a little bit better, they'll probably still win tonight as well. And now you really complicate things for New York. But yeah, man. You got anything else on the Rangers? Want to get anything else off your chest?
No, just the. I mean, even I saw Sean Avery in a show, like talk about, I mean, he's a clown, but talk about Rampy and talk about
Rampy,
the
man.
Panthers.
Rampy's
Rampy,
listen,
and
Cameroon.
like, and
Rampy,
how the game wasn't that far apart. I mean,
yeah.
nobody wants to give the Panthers. It's because of the history of the team too.
It's a hit. Yeah. I think
You
in a
know,
few years, I think they'll look at the Panthers in a different light.
like they look at Tampa, right? And now,
I know that's a scary team. Like, yeah, you lost to that team. Yeah, that's a given. Which a lot of
yeah.
Leaf fans, at least, were realistic. If they did go into the second round, they were probably going to lose to the Panthers. Um, but yeah, man, it's so much. Sports in general, it's so much about matchups, right? And that's what it is. And I think Maurice has done a great job with the guys, and the guys have kind of stepped up in their own way to know what they got to do in games like this and in a series like this. I think it's just an advantage that the team has. Um, and yeah, I think if they win tonight, they'll be good. They'll be good for the Panthers. Takes a lot of the pressure off. You can kind of split at home and go from there. Um, and then on the other side, like not to get ahead, just looking at that game, Dallas against the Oilers. First game of a series is always tricky. But yeah, some of the individual matches were interesting, and seeing Tanev have such a bad game was kind of surprising in a way. I know you don't really love him that much, but that was kind of weird, right? And yeah, it's gonna get interesting, man. I'm hoping for obviously Panthers versus the Oilers in the finals.
Yeah, and I think it's just one game, and I still think Dallas has the advantage. I don't think necessarily they had a bad game. Um, I just think that Tanner just had a couple of really bad moments on defense. In my opinion, the winner, he lost that battle there, and then kind of didn't get to the front of the net fast enough with McDavid there, and kind of fell asleep a bit. And yeah, and couldn't clear Hyman.
Yeah, man, he
Out of
got
the way. I mean,
like,
Hyman's a big dude, man.
yeah, I know, but still, like,
Well, it's about positioning, man. It's about positioning. At that point, you got to cross check. You got to do the Brando Carlo or McAvoy. Those guys, I'll tell you, the Bruins, this is why the Bruins are hard. You know what the Bruins would have done? They would have taken a penalty and maybe even gotten away with it. They would have crushed the hell out of that guy.
No, Hyman had position right in front of him, and he was protecting the puck.
You got to cross check
like
the guy.
3 second wait.
You cannot hesitate. You need to be able to cross check that guy and take the penalty. So anyway, yeah, I mean, Tanner was kind of third pairing in Calgary at times. Like he's a good player. He's a good player. I'm not trying to take anything away. Listen, he blocks a lot of shots. He's a good player for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say the guy is a bad player. I'm just trying to say, like, sometimes these guys, like the same with Zadorov, they were saying, "Oh my God, Zadorov had such a great playoffs," which he kind of did, but also he did because he's a huge guy. And the Oilers not, I mean, they have Kane and whatever, but they're not naturally physical. And also, Vancouver was lifeless for a lot of that series. I have to say.
Oh man, it was.
I am now like a non-believer in the Canucks. Like I think Patterson is worse than Huberdeau. Like he is awful. He's terrified in the playoffs. No accountability. He seems like a spoiled child. JT Miller has like mental issues. He's got somehow.
Psycho. What if he knows it too? He's like,
no, he knows it. He's like, yeah, that's just me. Yeah, that's just me. I have road rage. But yeah, that team seemed like they couldn't get shots on goal. They like,
not boring like the Panthers. I mean, like, just like exactly like it couldn't create chance. I don't know. There was something that was so off. There was an energy there that was just lacking. Like I don't know what it was.
I think the team just doesn't know how to play in the playoffs. I think Quinn Hughes is also not good for the playoffs. And
I mean,
they're young and all
he'll
that. They need
develop.
to,
Yeah, he's young.
yeah, they need to
He has a
develop
lot of
it.
potential. Yeah.
But they look like shell shocked. They look like a team. So anyway, Sadorov obviously is going to stand out in a team like that. And now they're talking about like maybe he's going to get 5-6 million, and I'm like, get out of here,
Yeah,
whatever.
some team will pay him, man. And like it's
He's also a liability during the regular season. He can
yeah,
take penalties.
he's terrible. He's bad
Turn
in
it over.
his own zone. Yeah, yeah. He's not a great defenseman. He'll be a good like number 4 guy, maybe number 5. If you want to go that route, then you probably have a solid team or solid defense. But
Yeah, but if you're going to pay him Brett Pesci money or Montour money, you're screwed.
yeah,
And that's like their current salaries.
yeah, it's
You
just the
know,
way he looks. I think Calgary did the right thing moving on from those 2 guys. Actually, I think Calgary has been doing really good
yeah,
getting rid of guys that they know are not going to stay. Everyone that they traded at the deadline, I think, was the right move. So that might be one of those teams that can be contending as soon as next year. They still have Hoover though might pick it up or whatever. Can't be this bad this long. He just needs better alignments, I guess. That's
yeah.
what.
No, I mean, Huberdeau is just mostly a liability in the playoffs, but he's been a good regular season player. Just needs the right line. Yeah, no, I don't know. The West will be interesting. We'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping that series goes 7, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. It should be fun. It should be back and forth. I do feel like both teams take too many chances. They're kind of sloppy. Heiskanen got away with one turning a really terrible turnover.
Yeah.
That was a breakaway.
Yeah, and McDavid to the play that he missed that I texted you, like how did he miss that?
Yeah.
He was just by himself, and if you look at this one camera angle where there's 4 Dallas Stars within like 15-20 feet of him, all kind of just grouped together, like just chilling.
They're pulling a Maple Leafs defensive scheme.
Let's watch my
like when Dangle does the breakdown, it's like, what is that?
Dude, but it
5 guys on over here, and there's like
4 guys covering no one, literally, and McDavid was like wide open. And sometimes there's just broken plays, and we know how
it happened to I think it was Duchesne that it happened to on the Draisaitl goal. For some reason, the forward, I think it might have been went with a defenseman like chasing up, and there were 4 guys for Dallas also out of the frame, and then Draisaitl's by himself, and he just happened to get the rebound, but he was literally by himself, and that forward should have stayed with him. That was his. I think he was a left winger.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I forgot who it was, but he was just kind of standing there with Draisaitl, and then he just kind of left. He was next to the goal.
He pulled him
on the goalie.
Right,
yeah, he was next to the goalie, and the other defenseman had already his guy, so he was literally guarding no one.
Yeah,
and Draisaitl was behind him.
That's when Nylander does.
Oh my God, it's a special case. That's gonna be so interesting next year.
Yeah, but to be fair, at his best, this guy is a solid 2-way player. But a guy who does that for us when he's at his worst is Verhey, who can like make some dumbheaded plays and be kind of out of position at times on defense. And of course we have Edblad too, so can't complain. Can't talk too much because Edblad can be a mess. I do think. Yeah, and people are saying that Edblad's still hurt or whatever from his injury, and that he's not himself anymore. You could tell Edblad is.
Yeah, he's very stiff.
Yeah, he does not. I think he's going to retire young. I don't think Edblad's.
Yeah, he just looks stiff out there, and even when he's like puck handling his own, he was a decent puck handler. He looks awkward to me.
For his size, not fast, but like he could move side to side. He could weave. He can barely weave now. He gets beaten all the time on defense in terms of race, and just looks stiff. Like you said, just looks like his body movement is not fluid. And he used to be our number 1 guy on the power play and everything. Like he cannot run a power play anymore. He doesn't have the skate.
He can't skate.
Goes and Forsling and those guys, and even OEL, like he can do that.
That is so slow. Like he was always kind of sluggish in a way because he's a big guy, but he's lost a lot of step. Yeah. I think his next contract, I think he might be one of those guys that takes a pay cut, and
I think he needs to.
And just tries to retire here, which would be fine, second.
Yeah. But anyway, you mentioned the slow thing with the Rangers, man. I mentioned it to you, and maybe it's contrast. It's just what I mean, because speed is deceiving. I know that when Maurice talks about playing fast, and I know that Berube was talking about that with the Leafs. When coaches talk about playing fast, they don't mean skating fast, because that's just quickness. You have quick skaters and you have slow skaters. Like Barkov is not a quick skater, but he's an excellent skater. There's a difference, right? And like Point is quick, like Verhaeghe's can be quick, and Bennett can be quick, but what they mean fast means the ability to move the puck quickly and to do it with confidence and knowing where the guys are going to be and do it responsibly. Getting out of the zone, even the forecheck. If you have a quick, fast forecheck, you can get to the puck a lot sooner, and you can get those turnovers, right? And that's one thing. The one place where I give Rangers fans credit is like one thing that they all mention is that the Rangers lost the race to the puck almost every single time. And that's what I mean by fast. I think the Rangers look to me like the way they play fast is by passing. So their passing in the O zone can be crisp, and that can get you out of position. But it also allows, in some ways, Bob to see the puck, because I don't think they have a lot of traffic in front of the net. But in terms of their skating and their decision making on the boards when they don't have space, it just looks slow to me, because the Bruins were harder to contain. In my opinion, they had some chances against us, and they were pretty fast on the boards because they're used to it. They're not afraid of the contact. They know how to take the contact, how to turn it, and keep it moving.
Yeah,
and it's really hard and exhausting, man, to play against that. The Rangers don't look like they know how to do that well.
no,
If they don't have space. Now, if you give Panarin space, he's going to cook you. But yeah. It just doesn't look like they know what to do.
Yeah, the space is not going to be there. The Panthers are not going to give them the space. The Rangers are going to have to fight hard for those goals and take advantage of the rushes and the power play, like I said earlier, and ultimately 5-on-5, if they can't really generate or score, they're just going to struggle to win. By the way, the Lundell-Bennett flip thing is basically on the sample size. Lundell with Kachuk and Verhaeghe, they have like a really good expected goal for and against. And also just in the playoffs when they've played together, they're outscoring 5-1 their opponent. So I think that's, if you put Bennett in there and you run those same stats, they're very crappy.
They were not good against.
But it was more to help. It was more to just kind of give that second line a little bit of a jump, and then you still have a good third line with Bennett and Rodriguez, who are both kind of veterans, even though Bennett's young. So I think that was the plan, and that's what they practice. I think that's going to be it for the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Maurice would only make that change again if the matchup isn't working. If for whatever reason the lines that are getting matched against that line, it stops working, he'll make the change. He has options now in all of the lines. Where Tarasenko could be moved out of the first line, and either Verhaeghe or Rodriguez could slot in, and chemistry wouldn't be lost. The second line obviously has a couple of different iterations. Worst case scenario with injuries, you could put Cousins there and at least get some solid play. And the third line now, with Bennett having been the center, there are a couple of different ways you can go. And we have also been used to having injuries and stuff and some guys out. So that's, but yeah, I think it's quite possible that this is where Lundell says, I'm your 2C now, going into next season. Yeah, I think that's been Cito's plan and hope. That does mean the extension for him will have to happen, and, we might need to dish out a little bit extra. But then it gives you more flexibility what to do with Bennett, And I've always told you that I always felt like if Bennett is your third line center, you're going to win a cup. But he fits your second line. I don't know. He's a really solid player, but he's not as good of a scorer and point getter as a second line center as a lot of the other elite teams. And so I think given his checking style but his decent hands and really good skating, I think he's an excellent third line center. So it will come down to what Bennett wants to do with his next contract, whether he wants to, get the bag and, get that max deal, which I'm sure some teams will give him because of reputation alone. I think he's a guy that a lot of teams are going to want, at least for a second line. But if he wants to win with the Panthers and he's willing to take a decent contract, but nothing crazy, I could see a fit. Again, it just depends. We saw Forsling take a great deal for us. we don't know what's going to happen with some of the other guys. But yeah, I think Lundell does give you more flexibility. And if Bennett doesn't want to resign for a reasonable contract, then you can either move him, or if next year we're in the fight, you can do what you did this year, is just keep him for the rest of the run and then let him go. But yeah, he's a guy who at a trade deadline could give you some value if it comes down to that. And if this is your third line center, it's easier to replace. And I know that these guys are young or whatever, but I keep telling you, man, and maybe it will play out, maybe don't, but maybe not. But I do think Cito is a very methodical guy.
Yeah.
And I think Maurice has this program. They are priming Justin Sordiff to become our third line center in a year or two. The fact that they had him as center this entire year in the AHL in the first line, and he's been a center in juniors. That was his position. And in some ways, they were putting him out there for a lot of key draws. And he's number one. He's on the first pairing for the penalty kill as well. So he's the perfect third line center. And I think he is a guy with his maturity, and he's already 23. He's not a kid, So I could see Justin Sordiff becoming, since Lustrana didn't work out as a center for us, he's a better winger. I think that we might see Bennett going after next season, and then Sordiff takes that spot. You do need to get young guys, and I would just maybe resign Stenlin as a fourth line center for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, another thing,
he's still young. I think Stenlin's like 28.
Yeah, he's pretty young, and if you want to keep him as a penalty killer, you can do that. You can also just play Sordiff next year at center in the fourth line if you want to go that route instead, and just kind of let Stenlin go. I'm sure Sordiff would penalty kill.
I think they're gonna have Sordiff on the win for a year, and then let him get accustomed to that. My suspicion, and then if there's an injury, maybe they move him. Lustrana kind of did that for a couple of years. Was trying to play center for a while, and then kind of was moved in and out of the center position. Then eventually they said, "All right, we're going to sign you, but you're going to be a winger."
Yeah, Lusty's a very unique player. He's not going to give you scoring, but he's that plug-in for that third line. And if he's ever in your fourth line, you have a great freaking lineup.
But if you have sort of Rodriguez and Lusty next year or the year after as your third line, actually, that's not bad, man. That's not bad at all. And Lusty will be more of a veteran by then. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I can see them keeping Bennett. I think Cito's okay just letting go of the cap hit for free, as long as he can replace that player and have.
I might try to sign Reinhardt and then let Verhaeghe go, and then try to keep Bennett, let Monter go, and then try to replace some of those guys with like solid players. And then the kids, Mackey's going to have to be top 6. So sort of bottom 6, maybe Benning is your 7th guy.
From your top 9, so from your top 3 lines, you're really only losing Tarasenko.
Right now, yeah. Right now, the main, which could be Mackey, who replaces him.
So all you're doing is replacing that player essentially, and everybody else is signed at least for a year, and then some of the guys beyond.
Anyway, it's off-season talk, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of the line, man, and we lost all the Ranger fans that were watching.
No, I am hoping. I don't know that. Yeah, they're going to come across this.
Guys, motherfuckers.
But I was just like, wow, these guys like don't know what they're watching. It's like it was the most boring game. I'm glad I didn't tell my friends to watch it, and like what are they doing? They're just parking the bus. They don't want to. The Panthers don't want to play. The Panthers don't want to play. I'm like, excuse me, punching them out. Welcome to the playoffs is what I wanted to say. Like
my favorite type of fan, and this is not to Rangers fans in general, is the ones that are like, well, a Ranger fan was like, we just need to be better coming out the zone and providing puck support. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you were trying that whole game. It's not like they're like, no, let's just not do it. You almost feel like your team is just basically, you didn't win because your team didn't execute X, Y, and Z. And it's like they know, the coaches know the stats with Rampy in the game or out of the game. They have a good record with him in the game, but he is a liability.
Plus, who cares? Like, I'm sorry, but
it's not what you lost.
In today's hockey, that doesn't make a difference the way that you think it does. And your fans and all that, like, I also think that's overrated. I think it's fun for the game, for the fans or whatever, like to feel like they're involved. the for the players, it doesn't matter. I still remember. I'm never gonna forget against the Bruins. They were singing "Living on a Prayer." You know how when they play the song and then the fans continue to sing the song. And I remember last year the Bruins, the Garden was rocking with the song, and then Eric Stahl
Oh, yeah, he scored.
scores a goal, and you hear everybody, you may not, oh, everybody went quiet, and I'm like, it doesn't. You can get the fans into it, and literally the next shift,
Oh no! If the Panthers score first tonight, the amount of freaking booze that are going to start raining down in the first period.
It's just funny, man. People, yeah, it's like, and I get it. I get. All right, I'll say this. All right, here's my concluding thought. The reason they are desperate for Rempe and they feel they need Rempe out there is that in the back of their minds and in the bottom of their hearts, they know that they don't have Rempe's spirit on that team.
Yeah.
And the Panthers is filled with Rempe's in terms of the attitude. And that is your only lifeline. And if both teams play to their identities, you're going to lose in 5. Like you won't have a shot. And I think that's why you desperately want a guy like Rempe out there. Because some of these other guys, man, like Ross Levick and Edel and like Fox, I want to say, they to me, and I've watched the series against Tampa closely and the Bruins closely, and I can tell those guys look scared. Those guys look like I'm not digging this kind of a style. I don't want to play this kind of a game. I didn't have to do this the first 2 rounds. With the Bruins, I told you from the beginning, the reason I always hated them is that they are the opposite of that. Every single guy on that team to a man, it's like, let's go, and they'll do anything. They'll score, they'll play fast, or they'll punch you, they'll fight you. Again, McAvoy took a penalty with 6 minutes to go in a decisive game, trying to take Bennett's head off out of nowhere. Nothing, like they're psychos, man.
Let me retaliate right here. I've been waiting for this.
This is the best time to do it. And he literally tried to take his head off. He just missed by a little bit. And took a bad penalty. So anyway, that's the difference, right? And the Bruins just need more talent. If you add, a couple centers and a better puck moving defenseman to play with McAvoy back there, watch out, man.
Oh no, the Bruins are going to be contending if they're smart in the offseason, they're going to be back up there. I know the Lightning are trying to get back up there. They just got McDonough, was it? McDonough, right?
Yeah.
And
the Lightning are starting to be a little bit desperate. They're kind of the old man who's like trying to get the band back together. Recapture the magic. It's like I hear you, but McDonough's gonna be 35. McDonough's gonna be 35. Also, you're gonna have no money for Stamkos. They need to sign like 3 or 4 guys. They got like $5 million.
Trying to get Stamkos for $5 million a year, bro.
But not even that. If they get Stamkos for 5, they have no money left for anybody.
Exactly. They're
gonna have to play a bunch of rookies or whatever.
With the defensive core, they're losing like everybody except for like 2 guys, or I guess 4. But they call him Liljegren. I think he's staying.
Yeah. It's all those long-term contracts that the Lightning decided to give out to Sergachev, and they still have Edman and all these top guys, and they sign, and then Hagel they sign. So yeah, it adds up, bro. Like it's just hard. This is why Cito needs to like not get emotionally attached, and like maybe trade Ekblad, maybe let Verhaeghe go, maybe trade Bob finally. Like you're just gonna have to trust the kids and have some cap relief and kind of move your core along, where you keep some of the core guys. Like don't overpay Reinhardt. Don't fall in love with Reinhardt. Don't give him 10 million. Don't give him 9 million. Like he's not that guy. You're gonna regret it in 2 to 3 years. So anyway, yeah, just be smart, man.
I think I'm gonna chop it up so that the little bug thing is how we start this show. Do
it, and then take it out. Take it out the rest of the show. No, do it. It was funny. Anyway, I don't care. All right, bro.
Nobody watching the shit this far. If you are, thank you, man.
I mean, if you got this far, you got nothing better to do. Consider your life choices.
You're still listening.
God damn.
All right, bro. All right, guys.
But how gross.
Hey, hockey fans. Oh man. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, subscribe. You might as well. There's something wrong with you. So all right, guys, we'll catch you guys next week. We'll review the rest of the games. And then we'll plan for the off season once we get there with more content. So yeah, catch you all next time.